You're watching Talking Points, a focus on the political scene in Lubbock and across the South Plains.
Well, before the break, we covered the when, where, and how of voting. Here to talk about the who, what, and why is South Plains Professor of Government and longtime friend of Talking Points, Mr. Drew Landry. Professor, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Good to have you back.
Yeah, thank you.
You have a very interesting front seat to a lot of the issues that are front and center in this election, I think. There's been a lot of talk about the role that the youth voter in Texas plays. We've added a whole lot of them since the last election. And there's been a lot of focus, especially from, you see Beto O'Rourke. He's been making the rounds to colleges. He'll be at Texas Tech this week. So I'd be very interested to hear, what are the conversations that you're hearing from your college students about the issues that matter to them this election?
Well, that's a really good question, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but a lot of students are, the youth
like,
vote.
there's an election going on?
Yeah, that's one of the things that they ask about. What's this whole thing?
Right.
But the youth vote is incredibly unreliable. And so, you can ask George McGovern all the way back to 1972 how well that youth vote worked for him in that election. Every Democratic candidate ever since then has been trying to get them more involved, this 18 to 25, 18 to 29-year-old group to come out and be involved in this process, and they just haven't been there. So it's going to be incumbent upon O'Rourke to get them out, because more often than not, that age group is going to be his core set of support. So it's going to be up to him to get them out, and up to local parties, up to all the localities to push out this youth vote. But if it's just going to be tough to see them come out in a big drove and to change this election. Not to say that they can't, because they have that ability, but it's just other factors are in the way for them to really want to get out and do that.
Yeah, fair enough. We just heard from Roxine about volunteer deputy registrars. I hope that you are bringing some to your classrooms and making every student register to vote before they take their seat.
Yeah, I really should do that. That should be part of my job. You have to be registered to vote to be in this class. That would be something that maybe that's an extra credit opportunity. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you teach about this and study it for a living. But it seems like Texas is getting harder and harder to forecast in this realm, right? If you look at the changes that we've had in our electorate just since the last election, Lubbock County has had 10,000 more voters added to the rolls since the last time Governor Abbott was up for election. And the state as a whole has added over 1 million voters since just 2020. Yeah. In the last 2 years. We've added an entire New Hampshire almost in the last 2 years. Yeah. How does that change the dynamic in your mind?
It all comes down to turnout and what candidate can get their side out to vote. Now, O'Rourke has been saying since he first ran, this was a non-voting state, and we got to get more people registered to vote and get them out to vote, and things will change. Well, here's the opportunity. It got really close in 2018. Things were pretty close in 2020. Trump beat Biden in 2020 by about 5.5 points. That was up in voter registration, had a little bit of an uptick in voter turnout. And here we are in 2022, O'Rourke's back on the ballot. He's got to inspire this sort of change that he's wanting to get the result that he really desires. Whereas Abbott, he needs his side to really come out. And in this midterm election, as midterms always do, the voter turnout will be a little bit less than that of a presidential election. So if we were to do like a little bit of a graph, it'd be like all that. And that's just the way that the science has gone for, seems like forever. But it's interesting that turnout for this midterm will be less than that of a presidential election. But it's going to come down to really that turnout. Basically, and I've been arguing this for a few years now, it's been the West Texas turnout that's going to really decide who the next governor will be, the lieutenant governor, attorney general, all the way up and down the ballot.
Especially, well, it doesn't come down to party. Every candidate is really minding the margins in rural Texas and our neck of the woods. You see, Governor Abbott's been here 3 times this election cycle. Beto's coming back for his 4th this week. Dan Patrick has been on a bus tour all throughout a bunch of small towns. And his opponent has been here a few times as well. But then if you look at the margins, let's look back at 2020 in that presidential election. Lubbock County was still 65% red, 1/3 blue. If you were, say, Beto O'Rourke's campaign advisor, would you say that is time and money well spent to try and shave that off? How big of a difference do you think that can make? You know,
that's an interesting question, and a lot of those in the urban counties kind of like to laugh at people who come in this part of the state to really campaign, and they say, well, why are you spending so much time out there? You're not going to win it, so you need to come over here. Well, the whole aspect about coming over here is to shrink those margins. It's exactly what you were suggesting earlier, is that, you know, you're not going to win rural Texas. That's not the point. The point is to make the election closer to compete. Right. And so I've been arguing this particularly in Lubbock County. You know, if everything stays the same, and what I mean by that is, you know, Dallas votes for O'Rourke, and Harris County votes for O'Rourke, and, you know, those blue counties typically show up in the way that we would kind of suggest that they would, and all the other counties kind of remain that same trend. But if Lubbock County was to go 60-40 to Abbott, or 62-38 to Abbott, the state just flipped because that margin of victory was shrunk. It just shrunk. So that's been the whole perspective. That's been the whole point of O'Rourke coming out here time after time after time after time, is to shrink those margins of loss for him. So that's the whole purpose for him coming out here 4 times. I think that might be, I don't think he'll have enough time to come back again, but, you know, Collier coming out here, Patrick coming out here. You know, Patrick is, I don't know, he doesn't really come out here all that much. He didn't campaign back in 18, but he's back here, and, you know, they are realizing now that this area is the decider. All roads come through West Texas in order to win this state. Yeah.
Put that on a bumper sticker. I'll buy it. I'll put that on my car.
Yeah, right, sure.
But you're right. Beto O'Rourke isn't trying to win Lubbock County, right? No. But
that's right.
The race is not decided on how many of the 254 counties you win, right? A vote in Lubbock County counts just as much as one in Harris or Travis County.
That's right.
So it's a 1-to-1 ratio there. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Did you say Dan Patrick is coming back this next week? He was just here a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I saw it on
something.
social media that Dan Patrick is returning to do like an hour-long town hall style conversation, and then I think there's a fundraiser after that. So you know, the details and all that, everyone can go find that. But that just speaks to how necessary this area of the state is for a statewide race here. You know, and incumbents always have the advantage, but on the Republican side, they have lawmakers, they have, you know, office holders who can come and carry the water. In this time around, and in the last time, Democrats have had trouble to get candidates even on the ballot to carry the water, to come campaign for O'Rourke or for Collier and all those others. Whereas the Republicans can just say, hey, look, I'm going to help this guy. You got to send me back, and you got to send him there. And, you know, they have that ability to really carry that message. And so that's why you know, you're seeing, you know, Senator Perry and future state Representative Carl Tepper and, you know, Representative Burrows. You know, they're going to help out Dan Patrick and Governor Abbott as much as they can, and even the Attorney General. So yeah, so I kind of diverted from your original question, but yeah, Dan Patrick is coming back, and that just speaks to how important it is for this area.
It is incredibly important, and I could talk to you about this for hours, maybe over a beer after we're both done with work for today. But,
I got you.
Really appreciate you coming in and sharing your perspective.
Yeah, thank you.
You're doing the Lord's work trying to teach all of this to college kids. So
well, we're on the same page. Thank you.
Drew Landry, thank you so much for coming on. And stick around, we're coming right back with a look at the top headlines of the past week.